What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Big Men on Campus podcast, College Basketball Edition. We're continuing our conference previews as the season begins. We're about, 3 weeks away or so from the golden season, the college basketball season. I know everyone's concentrating on football and the NBA back, but you got to do your work now as college basketball approaches. And I'm really excited about the guest we have on tonight. I'm a big fan of his. And he's, went down the road that I don't think anyone has. He predicted every team and gave a little blurb on every team in America, ranked them 353-1. Barstool Reags, you're a terrific blogger. You're one of the best at the company, in my opinion. You're one of the best basketball writers in America, in my opinion, and I respect you a lot. Great work on that ranking. You were talking before. You told me it took you a little bit of time, but tremendous work, man.
Appreciate that, man. Yeah, I'm not the only one to do it. Matt Norlander from CBS does it every year. So he's the one who the reason I did it is because every year he says, in order to argue with him, you have to rank your own 353 teams.
Sure.
So I just want to argue. And I know Matt. Matt's a great guy. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to do it now. So I can now argue with you and about, why is, Southeast Missouri State 255th on the list.
Right. How many words do you know offhand?
It was like 18,000.
Wow.
Great word. Somewhere in there, yeah, 18,000.
Yeah, really good stuff. But we're talking about the big boys tonight. No Stony Brook, no Holy Cross, no Southeast Missouri State tonight. Some of the big boys. I went over the A10, went over Conference USA, went over a couple smaller conferences. And, tonight it's the big boys. It's ACC, it's Big Ten, it's Big East. We'll start with the ACC, Riggs. And obviously, look, many would say it's possibly the best conference in America. I think, one to the end. I don't know if it's the best, but there's terrific talent here. I've taken Virginia already. I took them at 15-1 to win the tournament. Again, do I think they win this conference? I don't know. Do I think they can win the whole thing? Yeah, I do. As far as you, though, you ranked, which I got to tell you, it's wild, really. You ranked Nevada ahead of Duke.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah. I don't think it is. It only is because people see the names, right?
Like I think Nevada is really good, but I think they're a bit overvalued coming into the season.
I think what people are forgetting though is they get Lindsey Drew back, who is such an important piece after he had an Achilles injury at the end of last year. Cody Martin was banged up at the end of the year, and they were still this good, right? And now you add in even more depth, even more talent. They're bringing in McDonald's All-American, who's also a top 20 recruit. They're bringing in transfers because that's what Nevada does. And if it wasn't Nevada's almost like Gonzaga 8 years ago, right?
Sure.
Where everyone just wanted to knock on them. But the reason I have Nevada above Duke is I'm skeptical. Don't get me wrong. Duke has 3 of the 10 best players in college basketball, probably, right? From an individual talent standpoint. They have 3 of the 5 best NBA prospects. There's no doubting that. What are they doing with the 5 spot? We've seen freshmen struggle under Krzyzewski. It's not abnormal to think that a young group's going to struggle, right? He's had one great year with this one and done culture that he's kind of, he's gone out and recruited, obviously, like he should have. And the 1 year he had it, the run to the title game with Okafor, Winslow, Jones, that group, they were a historic defense for that run, right? So it's not fluky. They were definitely one of the 5 best teams in the country that year, but they got there because of a historic defensive run. Does this team have it? I don't think Bolden's a great player. I don't know what to expect with Delorier playing major minutes. Do they go small? To me, their best lineup would be going small, right? Use Zion like the Warriors use Draymond Green, right? You're not running a true center. You're not running true positions like everybody else in the world, but bring in an Alex O'Connell type guy. And is that maybe your best lineup? But then how does that affect everything else, right? So their roster's talented, but it's a weird makeup, man. They have a lot of guys that play the same position, which is fine to a degree. I just don't know how well they complement each other. And a lot's going to fall on Trey Jones, who I like a lot. He's going to have to play the role that his brother played, but even more so of distributing. Like Tyus could kind of be greedy a little bit more because he was the third option. Trey's going to be the fourth option. So can he kind of pick and choose the way that he should, and a lot's going to fall on him. So it's like I said, I like this team. I think they're good, but I gave out my top 10 or the Vegas top 10 and whether you should bet on them or not, and I avoided Duke at all costs.
Sure. They're the favorite in the betting markets to win the title. And you mentioned Bolden, Delorier. I think they're really just going to be those, dump off pass, finish around the rim, offensive rebounding. They're decent shot blockers. I mean, Bolden was an All-American, which you have to respect. I'd want to get your opinion quickly on Williamson because I've been critical of him, which, again, you don't hear a lot of people being critical. But let's be real, Reags. This is a guy that if he was in the NBA right now, I'd be the second heaviest player. I mean, this is a guy that I didn't see him shoot much of a jump shot. Putting him on the ground, to dunk and things like that. But you also have to look at the level of competition. Are you as in love with him as seemingly everyone in the world is?
I'd say I'm somewhere in between. I disagree about his handle. I think his handle's fine. Okay. And I know people do like to bring up the lack of of competition because of in high school, he was in South Carolina and Spartanburg, and you saw him playing, typical high school teams, not, sure. You're not over in like the WCAC or anything like that, but let's not act like he didn't play anybody, right? Like He's still going through grassroots basketball. He's still playing, the best of the best and that stuff. So he has seen competition and he's excelled in that competition. And I think his handle's fine. His shot is the question. And it's not so much can he shoot? Like his form is not terrible, but it's just he hasn't really had to. Like he's always just been able to blow by guys because he is quick for his size and finish at the rim, obviously. So what happens when guys are sagging up? The college game is different. So even the weight thing, I'm not worried about because he's been that way his entire life, right? So he knows how to carry it. He knows how to play at that weight. I'm not worried about that. It's just more what happens against a, when they're playing Virginia and that pack line defense where, you don't see that at the grassroots game or at the high school game. I think he's fine. To me, he's going to be like an honorable mention All-American, maybe into the third team. I actually like him. I'm not, going to sit here and scream he's the best prospect, and I'm also not going to sit here and scream he's a bust. I think he's somewhere in between.
Yeah, obviously he's going to get the tip-top conditioning at Duke. He's going to have the ability to have better, facilities and all that kind of thing. So he'll be fine, I'm sure. It was just interesting to hear that, he is 285 pounds, big kid. Look, Virginia, the elephant in the room was, they lost to a 16 seed. And probably, Riggs, you see a lot of sports. Where do you rank that? That has to be – I never thought it would happen. I think, maybe down the road it could just because, it's that one game kind of thing. But they didn't just lose. They got blown out of the building.
Yeah, it was weird, man. Like I thought it would happen at some point just because, like you said, it's one game and like we've seen it close before. It's not like every time we see a 16-1, it's a 30-point game and then this. It's up there. Like,
but the discrepancy in talent rate is just so large. It's just but you look at this game and you look at Virginia's team the whole season. They rolled in the ACC. They for the most part kind of had it wrapped up.
They were the second best team in the country last year.
Sure.
Like, and I will argue with anybody. Like, I don't even think it's an argument. Like, they were the second best team in the country, and I don't know if it was that close. Like, Villanova's clear number one, Virginia clear number two. So in terms of just one game upsets in sports, it's got to be top three.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. I think you're dead right. Just with how the whole season went for them and how they were at one point. This team was giving up they gave up in like the 40s, like 4 different times.
They lost one game in conference play and it was in overtime.
Yeah, it was amazing. They were unreal. And then just lay an egg like that in that game. It was amazing, really. But you look at this team coming back. Jerome and Guy are terrific guards. I think DeAndre Hunter, you see kind of I think it's very easy to make these comparisons, and they can be lazy, but he does kind of invoke maybe a Kawhi type of player. And he's a terrific defender. I think he's a kid that will go, I don't know, probably top 10, top 15. I need to wonder, though, what are you going to get out of the bigs? I mean, another team that does have weak bigs. Jack Salt is what he is. I think the key is Braxton Key. The key is Braxton Key. We'll see what goes on with him, if he gets eligible or not. Whether you have info on that, I don't know. It'd be a great get. I mean, he was good at Alabama, did some good things. He's got decent size. What do you think about Virginia?
I love Virginia. My comparison for Virginia this year is Villanova in 2015-16. So the year before, Nova lost to, that would have been what, UConn in the round of 32.
Oh, right.
In the round of 32, another early loss. The typical Jay Wright can't get it done. Villanova will never win. They're a great regular season team. That was the talk all the offseason. They lost. Darren Hilliard, who obviously was a great player at Villanova. He kind of is who I compare Devin Hall to from last year's Virginia team. Right. So you have the key starting guard that's gone. You have the can't get it done. But then you look at what they return. Ty Jerome, Ryan Arcidiacono, or Kyle Guy, Ryan Arcidiacono, Ty Jerome, Jalen Brunson. DeAndre Hunter is kind of like that Josh Hart guy, the NBA player that can be like he's the reason there's mismatches. And then you just look and people are forgetting about this team. And you said you gave them out of 15-1. I gave them out of 12-1. Like I jumped all over it. In the season, I mean, they are. I mean, a lot of people don't love to watch defense. I salivate watching this team play defense. I think it's fascinating to watch a team be that dominating on the defensive end, just the way they play. It's terrific. You look at some of these young kids coming in, this Jay Huff, they're talking about good size. He could stretch the floor a little bit. It's obviously going to be, question, do they have some of the bigs down low? I mean, Salt can be. I disagree. To me, it's not the bigs. It's can they get a third guard? What made Virginia so good last year, and the reason that they lost to UMBC is the fact that obviously Hunter was out. And when Hunter was out, he obviously had the injury last year, but what Hunter does is, and the way teams beat Virginia is they stretch him out, right? So you take away the pack line, you stretch him out, you attack with that stretch 4 or the stretch, or 3 somewhere in there. DeAndre Hunter has to play the 4 for this to be Virginia at its best. Last year, he was able to do so because you had Devin Hall, Kyle Guy, Ty Jerome. This year, you have Jerome Guy. That's where Key becomes important. Yep. Or one of these young guys. If you can look at someone like a Marco Anthony, or a Key Clark, who's a freshman. He's an undersized freshman. Someone like that has to step up and be a third guard to where you can push Hunter to the 4. And maybe you're not starting that way, right? Like Virginia could start Diakite at the 4, Hunter at the 5, but that first sub should be a guard in for Diakite or Salt. Probably Diakite, move Hunter to the 4, and now you're running 3 guards with that. That allows Virginia to guard teams that want to stretch around. It takes away the stretch, essentially, because Hunter's that good defensively at that 4 spot. So that's the key. The bigs, Jack Salt's been around forever. He started forever. You know what you're going to get. He does what you have, like what Virginia needs him to do. It's getting Hunter to that 4 spot.
And Key will be a key part of this team. I'll be interested to hear you have winning this. North Carolina, and then we'll get into maybe a sleeper or two. By the way, also, is it true that you're not a Syracuse guy? Is that true?
I mean, people. I've started to not like Syracuse strictly because of people telling me I don't like Syracuse.
Right.
But I will say,
what's the truth? Do you really like them, or?
I mean, I was never a fan of them. Okay. I was never a Boeheim fan because sure. I hate zone.
He's hard to like. Oh, you don't like his zone? Okay.
I hate zone.
Okay.
Mostly because I never ran zone as a player.
Sure.
So I was strictly like every team I ever played for my entire life has been man to man. So if you run zone, I judge you for that. But I don't know, like my dad was never a Boeheim fan, so it was always just like passed down. Like no one in my family.
He's a hard guy to like.
Yeah, like no one in my family's a Syracuse fan, so it's not like that. But they're just not fun to watch either. Like this year, they should be more fun to watch. But like recent memory, they're not a fun team to watch. Like they sit on the ball, they don't push tempo, they run that zone.
Kind of unlikable too. I mean, they've had a lot of unlikable guys over the years.
It's not even that. It's just like they're just boring.
Right.
Yeah, they're just a boring team to watch, especially recently where like, they're running 6 guys, six-man bench, and it's like, they waste 20 seconds and just let Tyus Battle try and do something.
Sure.
It's not like Virginia where they sit on the ball, but they're running like a beautiful offense that's very consistent. Syracuse is a terrible offensive team.
It's just what can Tyus Battle do. Let's before we get into them, let's talk North Carolina. Look, a very talented team, a lot of talent. Luke May back. You get Nasir Little ready to go. Sterling Manley, everybody's back. Kenny Williams, Cameron Johnson, Kobe White's interesting. Can he be that point guard for them? I see a lack of maybe a point guard here. What do you see with UNC?
Yeah, I think there's 2 big questions. Like obviously the loss of Barry and Pinson were huge from last year because everyone talks about Barry as a point guard, but Pinson was kind of the initiator of the offense. Like the way I should phrase it is, Roy Williams has 2 different offenses. One is that secondary transition that he absolutely loves. That's where Joel Berry initiated was key. Second is obviously his half-court offense. Now, half-court, they ran that offense through Theo Pinson. Like, yes, Joel Berry brought the ball up, but Theo Pinson was the initiator of the offense. Who does that this year? And that's my question is, and they're incredibly talented, but can Kobe White pick up that secondary transition that Roy demands to run? And then who becomes kind of that switchblade in the offense that you can put in the high post, you can put in the low post, you can ISO on the wing, you can initiate the offense without bringing the ball up. Is that Nasir Little? Is that Cam Johnson? Is it Luke May? I don't know who can step in there, and that's where I have a little bit of concern. That and the point guard depth.
Yeah, that was kind of my big thing coming into the season. I like UNC. There's a ton of talent. I'm also not a big Roy guy. Look, great recruiter. Somehow doesn't know anything about anything going on. That's the common thing down at that area nowadays. Duke doesn't know what's going on. UNC doesn't know what's going on. Even though, Michael Jordan's the greatest player ever and he gives your team shoes. I mean, come on with this. But that's neither here nor there. Yeah, look, I don't know. I think you hit it on the head, though. I mean, Barry's going to be missed. Pence is going to be missed. With them on the court, 1.16 points per game. Without, it's a lot worse. Defensively, they were a lot worse. You don't see them winning this.
No. I think they're the clear number 3 team. What's weird is like I have them in my top 10 rankings, but I don't know if they are. Like it's after the top 8, it's just so wide open that you almost have to put them there just based on talent alone. But you could tell me UNC is like ends up being like the 24th team, and I wouldn't fight you. So I don't think. Obviously they can win it just because it's an imbalanced schedule, and I'd have to look at the home and the home splits for everybody, but. If you're talking like a true round robin style, like every conference should play, then I wouldn't pick North Carolina. That's for sure. One of their bigs are going to have to make a jump. Manley, Brooks, and Huffman all are now sophomores, and Roy likes to have a big to crash the glass. Like, he is big on offensive rebounds and always been that way. That's always been a Roy staple. But their best lineup is Luke May at the 5 spot. And yeah, he's a great rebounder, but you lose your traditional inside post look that Roy's kind of always had when you look at, recent times, the Kennedy Meeks of the world, the Sean Mays of the world, those guys. So I love Nasir Little. I think he's a hell of a player. I actually think Cam Johnson's a breakout player. Kenny Williams can shoot the hell out of the ball, but something just seems off with this team. And it's going to be one of those, like, I know people are going to sit here and say I'm a UNC hater because I'm looking for what the problem is, but my gut just tells me something's going to be wrong with this team, and it's going to take a few games to figure out what it is.
It's the point guard. They don't have one.
But they do, but Kobe White is.
They do, but they don't.
Right, and that might not even be the problem. Like the problem might just be like they don't have that Theo Pinson that they can initiate the offense through.
Good point. We talked Syracuse a little bit. Look, Riggs, before we get into maybe a sleeper to a team, who's winning this? Virginia, right?
Probably. I think Duke will go through some more growing pains, obviously than Virginia. And I'm at the point where I'm just going to bet Virginia to win the ACC every year until Tony Bennett leaves.
Great point. I mean, do you believe in chips on their shoulder after last year in the tournament?
Yeah, I think you see them come off a little pissed off and try to prove a point this season. They're college kids, but at the same time, like Kyle Guy's got a little, mean streak to him. Ty Jerome's got a little something to him. Like this isn't like Virginia is a very calm team, but they have some dudes that'll get after you. And
Ty Jerome's tough, isn't he? From like Mount Vernon, I think.
Ty Jerome's from New York. Yeah. Kyle Guy's from Indiana.
Tough kid.
Kyle Guy's from Indiana. Yeah, like they're not your typical prep school from Virginia, or and not WCAC, Virginia or DC area prep school kids. They're dudes, and I think you do see them kind of come out and want to prove something.
Big prices on obviously Syracuse, Florida State. You got Virginia Tech. You're quite bullish on Virginia Tech. Who out of those three makes the biggest run to you?
I'll tell you who I'm really bullish on, though, is NC State.
Okay.
That's the team that I absolutely love this year.
Always very transfer heavy.
Yeah. And Kevin Keats, I think, is a hell of a coach that doesn't get talked about enough. I think he's a little underrated. And you look at the fact that they have, opposite of North Carolina, they have 14 point guards. And there's no lack of guard depth. There's obviously a lack of big man depth at NC State, but with the way NC State wants to defend of kind of the old 40 minutes of hell that we saw, Patino and Richardson run at Arkansas and variations of that. That's kind of what Keats wants to do. And it's all pressure. And the fact that you have so many guards to do that, I love NC State this year.
I mean, I get Yurt 7, he wants to learn from a Ewing, and I get that. That would have been a nice keep there if they were able to keep him.
And the fact that he can stretch the floor.
Sure.
He has that nice little jumper from 15 feet where, hey, that just leaves the lane even more open for a guy like Markel Johnson or Torrin Dorn. But they had like CJ Bryce.
Wyatt Walker comes over.
And UNC, and Bryce has a history with Keats at UNC Wilmington. So that's a transfer who, not only he sat out, but he already knows the system.
When Wyatt Walker was at Samford, I thought he was a pretty good player. He didn't play a lot last year, but I mean, I think he was like second or third team SoCon when he was at Samford. He could be a nice little piece in the middle for them. I think overall their team's really good. Killia Jones comes over as well.
Blake Harris from Missouri.
Yeah. When you look at this roster, I mean, there's a lot of talent here. And Keats, you got to respect what he did at UNC Wilmington. He comes over here. They're kind of under the radar. Just a lot of transfer guys coming in.
That's my team. If you want a
deep sleeper,
for a long shot title, throw a small amount on them. That's my team.
It's a good point.
I think they're that good.
I hate Brad Burnell. I've said that many times. I can't stand him. I think from a talent perspective, he never seems to matriculate much. He doesn't recruit well. I mean, the fact that he lost, I mean, again, it's tough to, I know, recruit down there, but you pretty much had Zion Williamson, and for some godforsaken reason, he couldn't tie it down. I just can't stand the guy. They're always on the bubble. I mean, it's always something. Can Clemson ever win with him?
I mean, they did, right? Like, they got to the Sweet 16 last year. Like, if you're Clemson and making Sweet 16s, you're happy.
Sure.
Like, that's what's weird with Clemson, right? Like, I think everyone expects Clemson to be better as a program because... But
look at all the talent that they've had. I mean, I thought they've had some really good teams.
But have they?
Like, I think for last year's team was really good, and look, they did do some things, but like the Blossom Game teams, the KJ McDaniels teams, I thought they were pretty good.
Well, that's because they had a player, right? Like they had that one NBA player. You had the KJ McDaniels, you had the Blossom Game, but I don't know how much talent was actually around them. And yeah, that might have been part, Brownell just not being able to develop, and lack of recruiting, things like that. But to me, it's like if you're firing Brad Brownell, which I thought they might have done heading into last year, right? Like he definitely saved his job last year. who are you getting that's better? Like that you're guaranteeing getting that's better. And that's always my question. Like I have zero problems with moving on from a coach if you know you can get somebody better.
Yeah,
I just don't know who they're like. Clemson's a weird spot from a basketball standpoint. Who'd you say?
Steve Forbes.
Is he leaving? Is he leaving for Clemson though?
I don't know.
That's my point. Like Clemson's a weird spot for a basketball program because you're overshadowed by football, but you're in a basketball conference. It's not like the SEC where you can go to a Georgia where you're overshadowed by football, but you're in a football conference, so it's okay. You're gonna have more time there. Clemson, you're in a basketball conference, and Clemson fans want to win. So it's weird. It's a weird spot. It's one of those weird schools. Like, people do all the time, especially when, hot seats coming around and okay, well, what are likely scenarios if this school fires this coach, who do they go after? And with Clemson, I just don't know.
I definitely think Forbes would leave. Definitely. That's definitely not a lateral move. No,
but does Forbes think he can get something better?
Yeah, sure.
Like that's more the point of we've seen mid-major coaches can be picky, right? Like we saw Shaka Smart do it. We saw Archie Miller do it. Steve Forbes is someone not on that caliber, but he's in that realm where he can sit there and say, hey, I'm fine at East Tennessee State. I'm going to make a couple NCAA tournaments every few years. And, I have job security. I'm getting paid enough. And then I can leave for when I want to leave.
You mentioned NC State 100-1. I mean, great price. I mean, obviously, for me, when you look at futures, look, I don't bet a lot of under 15-1. It's really just not my thing. I need, obviously pull out value. I need to be able to hedge. I need to be able to find that and hedge it early. 100-1 is terrific. Look, can they make a run? Why can't they? Teams make runs all the time. They have the talent, plenty of transfer stuff. 100-1, great price, Reags.
The way I like to do it is, and I do this every year, is I take 5 teams and I look for 3 that I love, in terms of heavy to mid favorites, because let's be honest, they're there for a reason. And then 1 true wild card and then 1 kind of flyer.
Sure.
And I think NC State can fill one of the, either the wild card or the long shot for me. Last year it worked. I loved Nova and had Nova at 25-1, and it gives you that hedge opportunity. So I as a betting standpoint, I try to look for things like that of, okay, what team, like you said, what team can I have a realistic shot at and also hedge? And, in the world of college basketball, you can take 5 teams and make a ton of a profit because there's just so many damn teams in college basketball.
Sure. What do you prefer handicapping? Do you like a mid? I'm big mid-major. Like I like looking at the, I like the value. I like finding, those hidden teams,
right.
The conferences, the Summit League, some of the UC Davis a few years ago was very profitable with Corey Hawkins.
Yep.
What do you prefer? Big conference, small conference?
I actually prefer the big guys. And I think it's just because I watch. So the way I kind of go about my life is obviously the high majors are on TV at night every night. So that's on, and then I watch the mid majors on film usually during the day. So you don't get the true feel of, I like getting a feel of how does a team act on the road, and on film you're not hearing as much crowd and everything like that. It's
right.
It's choppier to kind of follow along. So I always just and the majors are what I know. I mean, not that I don't know the mid majors, but the majors, I can sit here and tell you.
Plus, the access to information is way easier.
Right. But so I do kind of prefer the high majors to. Now that's not. There's always inevitably, like you mentioned with UC Davis, always at least 2 to 3 mid majors that I fall in love with, whether it's betting overs for them, or just betting them straight up. Because, there are some major, mid-major teams that are just god-awful defensively, but will launch, they're 5th in the country in 3-point attempts per field goal attempts. So there's going to be 103 3-point attempts that game.
Savannah State.
Right, exactly. Someone like that where it's just they give up a lot of threes, they shoot a lot of threes, and both percentages are high. And it's like, okay, well, you can set this number at whatever you want. I'm betting the over.
Sure. Let me ask you before we kind of get back into the Big East and everything. Two questions. Mike Daum. I followed Mike Daum really since his inception at South Dakota State. He's obviously gotten better every year. He's on pace to, I think, be the only player other than Kevin Durant to average 20, 10, and shoot 50% from 2 and 40% for 3. It's some random stat, but Dribble Handoff put it out. It's a really terrific stat. I was curious what your thoughts were with him at the next level. I don't see it. Do you?
I think he has some potential.
Defensively, he's very slow, though.
Yeah. I mean, that's obviously the concern, but I feel like that's kind of going by the wayside even more and more. Like,
he comes off very Kyle Wiltshire to me. I don't know.
If you can score, I think you have a spot. Okay. And yeah, he might have a little Wiltshire in him, but I still, like, to me, it's still shocking that Wiltshire isn't on a roster somewhere. Now that could also agree. It could also be a money thing. Like, you're obviously making a ton of money overseas.
I believe his dad was a big time guy overseas as well. I think he's
yeah. And maybe you don't want to pass that up. But someone like Dom, like, he can stretch the floor. He has good size. He's a great passer too. So I'm not saying he's going to be a starter or a rotational guy, but
poor man's Ryan Anderson, maybe.
Isn't he kind of built for a two-way contract?
Yeah, I could see it. Sure.
Let him. See if you can get him a little bit quicker at the NBA level. See what he does at that. You have him in training camp. You have him for 45 days or whatever. To me, he's got a role. It's just going to be with the right team.
Interesting. One other thing, I'm a big Temple guy. I mean, I watch every game still. I have season tickets still. For some reason, I just love Philly basketball. It's just my thing. I'm not a Fran guy. I'm ready to move on. I'm sick of the whole nice guy act. I mean, it's he's a great guy. No one will argue that, but he's really fallen by the wayside. Reags, there was one time when Temple basketball was the fifth sport in this town. You had the 4 sports teams, the majors, and then you had Temple. Back with John Chaney and those kind of teams, but this sure. But now it's not that anymore. It's Villanova, and Villanova is not even the city limits, as you know. Temple, look, I mean, it's kind of that weird spot between Dunphy and look. You have McKee on the coaching staff, and I think he's going to do some really good things for this team. He's young, he's from the area, he'll recruit pretty well. I like this team. I think there's some talent. That's a weird conference. I think there's 5 teams down there that are really good. The problem that I've had with Temple is the shot selection has been hideous. They obviously don't have. I mean, their bigs are awful. But Quentin Rose and Shiz are really good. I like the bench play. You got some good play out of Pierre Louis, Devondre Perry. What do you think about Temple? Can they be that team that can? They always seem to start the season well. You win one of these conferences, these tournaments that they have, and then they just kind of flame out in conference. What do you think about the Owls?
They're just another boring team to me.
Okay.
Like I hate to say, I hate to say because I grew up in Pennsylvania and I know I grew up knowing Temple basketball. And I agree. Quentin Rose and Shiz Austin are both phenomenal players. They could play at a majority of the schools in the country, but
what else do you have?
Right, like
because Obi and Echione is gone, and he was your
is gone. Like
Josh Brown.
They finished 500 last year, and it just feels like that's what Temple is. Like when I think Temple, I just think 500 basketball,
and that's what irritates me about the whole Dunphy thing. It's like, why do we need him another year? Just ride off in the sunset, friend. I mean, we have a pretty. Again, though, we're kind of in a weird spot because you have a good team, but
I'm fine with that though, just because it gives let Shiz have one more year with his guy.
Sure, I hear you on that.
And McKee's on the bench. It's not like you're bringing him in from
at the end of the year.
The Thunder or something like that from the end of the year. He's on an NBA roster. He's on another college another college bench. You're bringing him.
He's already
down. So I think Alani Moore has some potential for them, but it's just like
I found him to be repulsive to watch. I got so irritated by him at times last year. I think there's talent there, but
at least Moore's still young.
Yeah,
like he's just gonna be a junior. So, maybe it took him 2 years to adapt because he is 5'10".
Yeah.
Nate Pierre-Louis can move off the ball. That's, I think, going to be an important switch.
So you don't have Temple in the top 5
of the American?
Yeah.
So Houston, Houston, UC, UCF,
SMU.
I think are kind of the clear top 3.
SMU. They're better. SMU is better than Temple.
I mean, maybe SMU, they only have 6 guys.
Yeah, that's kind of always been Yankovic's problem. 6 guys.
I'll tell you what, if UConn can stay healthy, they're probably.
Yeah.
But I mean, I hate the American. I just hate that conference. And I think it's just because they're in no man's land. I wrote a blog about it because
it's a great blog, by the way.
The preseason poll came out. You have UCF as the preseason favorite to win this thing, preseason pick to win this thing, and it's just that's not good for the conference.
No, that's not.
And the counter argument that people were saying to me is well, isn't it good that with UConn being down and Memphis being down that these other programs are good? It's well, no, because they're not consistently good.
Right.
UCF is good for a year or two. Then what happens?
And it's what happens if BJ Taylor gets injured again? It's
back to SMU's been good for a year, 2 years, and now what happened? So it's just that's what, and the Americans just stuck in no man land, and it's just, I hate it. They almost have little brother syndrome because they want to be a major conference. UConn fans scream that the Big East needs them. The Big East does not need them.
And Wichita only gave them 1 year. Wichita's back to.
Yeah, but I trust this is just gonna be a 1 year thing for Wichita.
Let me ask you. I want to ask you about Greg Marshall quickly. Why not move on at this point?
Why? He's getting paid a ton.
But I guess at some point, do you want to go and get to a big major program?
But now I mean, Wichita State is right.
Yeah, you're right. But I don't know. I guess. But then again, you ask yourself with Jay Wright, why leave Villanova?
Look at Mark Few.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. There's that security. I hear you.
Well, it's not only that, but he's getting paid
a lot
more than he will at a majority of the Power 6 conferences. His facilities are top notch. He has the history there. People know Wichita State now. It's not like he's recruiting to an unknown anymore, right? People know Wichita State. So where's he going? Unless it's a blue blood, where are you leaving to?
Good point. I don't know. I guess it's kind of just at some point, I guess maybe career-wise, you maybe want to go and be kind of one of those, because he is on that level. I mean, he's that level coach, but so is Mark Few, and Mark Few's had a great career, and he's built a program from nothing to something. And real quick, where do you rank Mark Few? Top coach?
Let's see.
But because as a pure program, he's literally went from nothing to something.
That's not true. Dan Monson brought that program up pretty good. He took over for a team that was consistently in the NCAA tournament.
But
he did turn it into what it is now. But Dan Monson is the reason that Gonzaga was Gonzaga to start.
Where do you put him? Top 5?
I think just outside. I'm looking. So I didn't do I do the week of lists in late October, and I'm looking to see where I had him last year real quick. Now, this obviously can change over the course of a year, but at least give a general idea. I had him 7 last year.
Okay.
So
who'd you have 1?
So I had
Krzyzewski
still at 1. So my top 10 last year: Krzyzewski, Calipari, Izzo, Self, Roy, Wright, Few, Beeline, Mack, Bray.
No Boeheim.
No, Boeheim I had 22.
You hate Boeheim.
Well, it's also one of those so the way I try to phrase this is take history out of it.
Yeah.
Because you can sit there and say, well, Jim Boeheim won 1,000 games. Well, it's yeah, he's been around for 50 years.
What does that matter now, right?
Right. So it's what I tried to do is, who's the best coach in 2017-18? Think of it as you're starting your own make-believe university and pick whoever you want to run the program. And that's the key. You're running a program. So you're recruiting, you're selling, you're building a fan base, everything like that. And then coaching. And Boeheim, he's been fine. 23 out of the 353 is pretty good.
Yeah, no, you're onto something there. You're right. Big East, quickly. Let's go through it. I don't want to have you on here all night. I know you got a life. Villanova, were they the greatest offense you've ever seen at this level?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
The way and they're the most unique offense I've ever seen. And the fact that they could invert the offense, put Brunson in the post, who was just an excellent passer, put Spellman out, who's just an excellent shooter. How many times can you put your one in the post and pass to a five? The fact that they had literally 6 guys that could beat you left and right. I mean, take away Brunson, Mikal Bridges goes off. Take away Mikal Bridges, Dante DiVincenzo goes off. Take away DiVincenzo. Oh, remember Phil Booth? Yeah, he led the team in scoring when they won the title in 2016.
And he's back.
And Eric Paschall, who's one of the more underrated players.
Quinterly is a top recruit. I think Demir Kazi-Roundtree is an interesting player. Saw him at Newman Goretti. He was good, really good there. Had some injuries last year. You bring Joe Cream over from Albany, who is your Mike Nardi type of player. Had some great seasons for that group under Will Brown. I like Sadiq Bey a lot. I like some of these young kids they have. Obviously, it's a bit. I mean, look, to maintain what you had last year is ridiculous. But I see a lot of people talking Marquette. I see this, and everyone loves some of these, St. John's and all these different teams. But Villanova's far and between better than everyone else still.
Yeah, so there's 2 things in the Big East you can do this year. Put Villanova 1, put DePaul 10, and then guess.
Good point.
That's honestly it, right? And that's not even a knock on DePaul. DePaul's going to be improved this year.
Sure.
They're, I think, the clear number 10 team in the preseason, at least. Now, obviously, they can win some games. Who knows what happens? But in the preseason, you put Villanova 1, DePaul 10, and literally close your eyes and fill out 2 to 9.
Who would you put 2? Marquette?
Man, I don't see Marquette's defense just worries me.
It's terrible. By the way, they were 182nd last year defensively. Not good enough.
I'll tell you who I might put number 2. Butler.
Yeah.
I think I would go.
Baldwin's terrific, but tell me why.
I think obviously you lose Kalon Martin, and people sit there and look at that. And don't get me wrong, that's a huge loss. You 20-point per game score, but they got a little ISO happy with Kalon Martin because he was so good and that they demanded the ball. I think they're going to be a little bit better offensively without him. The lane's going to open up a little bit more for Baldwin to drive, Thompson to drive. I love Sean McDermott. I think he's going to be an incredible player. Paul Jorgensen has range anywhere in the gym. So I think you're going to see a little bit more balanced attack this year to where, teams can't sit there focus on Martin. If Martin's struggling, then there's a little bit of frustration, and then you try to force the ball. You just get a little bit out of rhythm. And that's not a Butler thing. That happens with anybody where you have a dominant player like they had last year with Martin, to where that, and I'm just buying Butler, man. Like they're just always there. Like it's one of those teams I'm just done betting against.
They are always there. Very irritating.
It doesn't matter if it's Mata. It doesn't matter if it's if it's Holtman, if it's Stevens, if it's Jordan. They're getting the most out of their kids every single year.
And they always get a couple of those big wins at Hinkle Fieldhouse. Terrific advantage.
Yep. They beat Villanova every year there.
No, you're right.
It's just going to happen.
Villanova can't beat them in that conference. Let me ask you quickly about Xavier. A lot of turnover last year. You had to integrate some new players. Ryan Wheelich comes over from San Jose State. Decent core, but what else do you have here? I mean, this could be a team that how many players are going to really run, frankly?
I'll tell you what. So I went and saw them in practice. I went and caught them, called a practice, got to see them, kind of going up and down, saw some live 4-on-4 and 5-on-5 action. This is going to be a damn good defensive team. A damn good defensive
Big step forward because they've been great.
But there was just 1 year they weren't good. That was last year. Yeah. This team's made to defend. You look at Najee Marshall, you look at Paul Scruggs, you look at Quentin Gooden, Tyreek Jones, and I'll tell you what, Zach Hankins, the D2 transfer, D2 player of the year, he's every bit of 6'11". Every bit of 6'11". And that's rare to see. But I'll tell you what, they have 10 guys, and they're going to be ready to play because it's one of the rare teams that have, 2 at every position, So in practice, you're going up against the same, the same person, and they were already annoyed with each other. Like there was already not fighting, but you're just going up against the same person day in, day out. You get annoyed. That happens at every sport, every level, no matter what. They're one of the few that have depth of two at every position. They're going to be ready to defend. And I think Xavier, obviously, you don't lose Chris Mack without taking a step back. You don't lose Trayvon Blewett without taking a step back. You don't lose JP McCure without taking a step back. I still think this is a team that can finish second in the Big East.
Wow.
I'm not going to pick them there, but if they finish second, I'm not going to be surprised.
Wow, it's lofty. But I don't think I would be surprised either. St. John's, they're a team everyone loves right now. And look, it's been a long time since they've been good. I mean, what do you go back to? The Mike Jarvis days? Last time they were a great
Ron
team.
Artest.
Yeah, it's been a long time. I mean, is Ron Artest even in the league anymore? He's out of the league now.
He's out now, yeah.
It's been a long, long time. But yeah, you look at this team. I mean, we know Pons is terrific. You bring in Heron. You already have a pretty decent defensive player, actually a really good defensive player in Justin Simmons.
Yeah.
Yep. Marvin Clark. You bring Cade over from South Carolina. You have this LG Figueroa. I've heard some good things about this JUCO player.
Yeah, they're high on him.
Mikey Dixon had a few good seasons up at Quinnipiac. Look, it's Mullins. What is it? Third year. Not great rosters. You had a decent program last year. Pons and Levette, they were fantastic, but then it was just kind of everyone else. This has to be the year for them. They're not going to win this conference, I don't think, but they have to get to the tournament, surely.
This year's make or break for Chris Mullen.
Agreed.
Everyone is kind of questioning just how good of a coach is he, because they've had talent, right? Like they've had guys that can play. It's just a matter of putting it together. Like the backcourt was supposed to be set, and obviously we know what happened, and there was players transferring and whatnot. But with the addition of Mustafa Heron and the fact that you already have a good defensive team, obviously you lose Tariq Owens to Texas Tech, but still you have a good defensive team set in place. You have an All-American in Shamori Pons. You bring in a guy, Mustafa Heron, who's was a 4 or 5-star recruit, depending where you looked. Averaged 16 a game at Auburn. There's no excuse for this team not to make the NCAA tournament. And I'm not talking getting in the first 4. Yep. I'm talking like a top 8 seed. If that doesn't happen, I don't know how you can keep Chris Mullen.
I read their bench was, I want to say, was really like right towards the bottom, like 345th in bench minutes. I mean, you went out and you made some changes to that. That should be much improved. You got to obviously get, Pons played a lot of minutes last year.
347th last year in bench minutes.
That's what, it's 6 to the bottom.
There was 351 last year.
Oh, true. You're right. That's a good point. Thank you, Reags. So you were the 4th worst team in the country with bench minutes. Players played a lot of minutes, got tired. This Figueroa kid, he played at Odessa College, 20 points per game. He'll help. Mentioned Dixon, Brian Trimble. There's some guys here that'll help. Quickly, Seton Hall lost a lot. Delgado gone, Desi gone, Kadeem Carrington gone, Sanogo gone. You bring in Torian Thompson, you Quincy McKnight from Sacred Heart, DeSandro Mishkavili, decent size. You look at the starting 5, not bad. Kevin Willard has a lot to kind of take care of here. Who's Georgetown? Obviously, they're a team. Maybe a year or two will be really good. Do you have a sleeper?
I mean,
Creighton. Is it Creighton?
Yeah, I mean, I would say probably Creighton, just because a lot of people are, kind of penciling them into the 8th or 9th spot. And I just love their backcourt. I love Mintz. I love Alexander. I love Ballack. But, can Crampel be healthy enough coming off that ACL tear?
And they are so bad on defense a lot of the time.
Yeah, but McDermott's just such a good offensive coach that it doesn't necessarily matter. Sure. So I don't know. Like, it's hard to have a sleeper in the Big East when everyone's just bunched up, right? Like, this is the one conference that I feel like doesn't have a sleeper.
It's a good point, because is Seton Hall really a sleeper? I mean, they make the tournament every year. Maybe it's I don't know, maybe it's Georgetown. I don't know. They went out and got some decent players.
Yeah, like I like all those teams. And again, if you tell me they finished 9th or 2nd, I'm not gonna like bat my eye either way.
And I think we'll all agree, whoever listens to this show, no one's going to disagree. It's Villanova's world. We're all just living in it. As a Temple fan, it makes me sick. They have a new stadium they're opening up. No more pavilion. It's got a new name. Should be a nice building. And that was another thing. That was so crazy last year. They literally played every game in a neutral court. It wasn't really a neutral court, but
yeah, you're not playing that on campus,
right? It wasn't on campus. They didn't walk out of their home and go to.
Something to say about playing on campus. Yeah,
it's kind of wild, really. Let's go through quickly the Big Ten. I hate the Big Ten. It's one of my least favorite conferences in the country. I'd probably rank the Ivy the worst for me. I can't stand it. And then the Big Ten.
See, I love the Ivy.
Do you?
I think
Why
it's
is that?
I just think it's because I had such good memories. Like, for whatever reason, I always have a great like one Ivy bet with like I'm sitting with my friends. We're all on the same team, and it ends up just being something ridiculous. Like last year was the Ivy championship game. Yeah. We were on Penn first half and Penn game, and just like a Saturday afternoon, just going wild. So I think I just have a soft spot in my heart for the Ivy because of that.
I've never been a big fan of the Friday card either. I hate the Friday, Saturday back to back.
I just like having something on Fridays though.
Good.
Like it's nice having that on where it's like, hey, like like typically like my wife and I will go out to dinner on Friday, and obviously wherever we go, there's usually like a TV on. We're not going out to like a nice steak dinner on every Friday or anything like that. But like there's something on TV while we sit at the bar and wait. And it's like, all right, well, there's at least something else going on.
And it's college basketball, so it's not bad,
Yeah, I'm trying to think like what's my like. I don't.
What is your league? Yeah, do you have one? Because for me, it's definitely I also am not a big MAC guy. I just
what MAC? MAC or MAC?
Sorry, the MAC. The
MAC.
The lone A. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's always just kind of a jumbled mess. I mean, obviously Buffalo's been really good, but like I can never really differentiate between like Bowling Green and Miami of Ohio, or Central Michigan and Kent State. It's just
the low majors. I don't like the Northeast that much.
Yep,
because everybody.
Yeah, I've always been a big LAU Brooklyn guy. I always loved that program. I don't know why, and I like Derek Kellogg a lot. But
yeah, I would say like I've my hatred for the Northeast has kind of gone down because I think Bashir Mason's going to be a star.
Yeah.
And their conference championship game is always one I remember.
Sure. It's always very good. That's why.
It's always really good, and it's always early. Like early in conference championship.
Yeah, I think it's one of the first. Like maybe
right. I think it's usually Monday night.
Yeah.
Or Tuesday night. I forget one of the two. It's one of those two nights.
It's always like Mount St. Mary's has been in it a lot. LAU Brooklyn. I'll tell you another one I hate, Patriot League.
See, I have a soft spot for the Patriot League.
You like
Feinstein. Well, the Feinstein book back in the day that followed the Patriot League. So it was one where I just remember reading it when I was younger and just kind of always followed along with it.
I guess you just look at like the actual conference itself. If you look at like boring basketball, it can be fairly boring, with your Americans and your Loyola Marylands and your
the WAC. Like I love Grand Canyon.
It's ugly basketball.
Yeah. The WAC's kind of bad.
Yeah. Outside of New Mexico State and Grand Canyon, there's not a lot of.
Well, that and it's just again like a lot of the same. Like every team just goes like 10 and 8 in that conference. Yeah. Like it's just everyone's the same.
What about the MEAC? That can be tough too.
The MEAC and SWAC are tough to watch because it is bad basketball. Like those teams just aren't good for the most part.
Yep. And they put it. At least you can watch it on ESPN late in the year. MEAC Mondays.
Right, and like the one thing I will give them is those schools hate each other.
Yeah.
So like you're gonna go watch two teams that like legit just want to beat the hell out of each other.
I'll tell you what, there's some really good coaches on that like Lavelle Moten.
I love Lavelle Moten.
Joyner. Yeah. There's some good coaches down there.
But it is like, and I hate this. Like, I'm not trying to knock the kids or anything like that, but it is bad basketball.
No, it is. It's kind of like watch. I've mentioned it. It's kind of like if you follow soccer, like you watch like Barcelona or like Real Madrid, and then you watch like the Irish league, and it's like wow, you could see like total different Like it's just not the same. I mean, it's just
Right. You're sitting there, and you know what? It's almost more like going with the soccer reference. It's almost like watching like the U.S. right where
compared to like Germany or something.
right. Well, in just even in terms of strategy, right? Like the U.S. and even down, like I played soccer going up my entire life too. Like the strategy in U.S. soccer is always long kicks, outrun the opponent, try to get a shot.
Yeah,
it's not the ticky tack, the pass, the build up. It's
footwork.
It's always been more use what we have of long pass and run.
Yeah,
and that's kind of the like
which
when you
clearly
look at,
hasn't worked.
In the MEAC and SWAC, it's kind of the same, right? Like launch a lot of threes, give up a lot of threes.
So Reags, let's get an answer here. What's your favorite, or what's your least favorite? Sorry.
I mean, it might be the MEAC or SWAC. The WAC's up there.
Favorite?
My favorite
Summit League, right? It's got to be Summit League.
Now, if I'm talking mid majors, it's probably the SoCon.
Really?
I love the SoCon.
Interesting.
America East. That's another one I really love.
I've always been a big Atlantic Sun guy.
Atlantic Sun.
Little Lipscomb. It won't be as great because Joe Dooley's gone, but
yeah. But I'll tell you this: the SoCon's good, and like it's also just like a good conference now.
No, you're right. A lot of great teams down there. Big Ten here. You have Michigan ranked above Michigan State, and good for you. I'm sick of Michigan State. I called last year. I told people at the beginning of the season this team was. There's just something about them I didn't like. You look at this team. Where is your bona fide star? Because you don't have that on this team, I don't think. I mean, well, actually, I know you don't. You don't have your really good, great player that you could depend on. You don't have a Miles Bridges. You don't have a Denzel Valentine. You have some question marks, at the point guard position. Can Cassius Winston be that guy?
I think Cassius Winston's a star.
Okay, you do.
Yeah, I think Cassius Winston is really good.
Is he the next great player at Michigan State?
It's going to be in a different way. Like he's not going to put up the triple doubles like Denzel Valentine did. He's not going to put up the NBA talent like Miles Bridges did, but he's going to be he's one of the best passers in the country, and he can he's one of the best shooters too. So I think he's good enough to be your number one. I'll say that.
Interesting. Because I've heard a lot of question marks from the fan base and just different writers and stuff. And I was kind of in that way of thinking as well. But maybe you've sold me on Winston. I got to see more.
I think he's just a different guy because he's your more traditional point guard where that's not typically your star, right? Like you think of a star, you think of a wing or like a combo guard. He's more your traditional point. But I mean, I don't love this team, but I love Cassius Winston. I think he is on the short list for Big Ten Player of the Year.
Interesting. I mentioned you had Michigan above them slightly. Look, you lost a lot. I mean, Rockman was a terrific point guard, just that Derek Walton type, do it all. Marge Wagner was unstoppable in the tournament. Duncan Robinson was just a good shooter. I mean, he gave you a lot in the corner and in the perimeter. There's a lot of young players on this team. Why do you have Michigan above Michigan State?
First off, John Beilein.
Yeah.
I mean, John Beilein's
unreal.
I mean, he at this point he might be a better coach than Tom Izzo. Charles Matthews, I think, is a potential All-American. Jordan Poole's going to be – he's everybody's breakout, on the short list of breakout players of the year.
Levers.
They're going to be one of the smartest things that John Beilein did, and not Beilein, but any coach did, was Beilein bringing in Luke Yaklich as essentially his defensive coordinator. Beilein – coaches are egomaniacs, right? Like they don't like change. Beilein – looked and found his, knew his weakness was defense. So he brought in a guy just to coach the defense, and now Beilein focuses on the offense. There's minimal coaches in the country better than Beilein offensively. That 1-2 combo is the reason why Michigan was third in the country defensively last year.
Yeah, you didn't kind of realize that. It
Yeah.
was kind of hidden. I was interested to learn that. I mean, look, they'll regress a little bit just because
Not
the
much,
talent.
but
Right. They're not going to be
their
much.
best defenders are still there.
Yeah,
Like Charles Matthews, Isaiah Livers are probably their two of their
Teskey.
best defenders. Teskey's a good defend. Like, is someone at the rim. Poole can defend. Simpson can harass other guards. Like, I think they're still going to be a top 8 team defensively.
And what he does is continue to bring people in to defend. Like, I saw Eli Brooks in high school, Spring Grove, York, Pennsylvania.
That's where I'm from.
Are you really? Okay,
Yeah.
cool. I'm in Lancaster right now. So,
Okay.
yeah, I watched him play. Tremendous scorer, good defender, kind of a do-it-all, backup point guard. You have some decent depth. I've heard a lot of talk about this Ignas Brazdeikis.
Yep.
A lot more I've seen his Instagram. It's quite interesting. One of those
one of the best personalities in the country.
Yeah. He's got a good social media presence. Look, I like the team a lot. I mean, you just lost some of those big boys, those big names, and yeah, I'm not a big Michigan State guy, so I always put Michigan over them a lot of the time, just because I think Beeline is better at this point than Izzo.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, like the roster makeup looks better for Michigan. Like,
yeah,
they have the spots. Like Teskey's underrated, and he can step in. He's not going to be Wagner, but he can step in and play that big man role just fine.
He's also not Ricky Doyle either.
Right. This recruiting class is a strong recruiting class coming in. When you look at guys like Brandon Johns and David DeJulius to go with Brazdeikis, and again, Charles Matthews is good enough to be an All-American. That means something at this level.
You're totally right. Indiana's interesting. I'm a lot higher on them, I think, maybe than others. I like Archie Miller a lot. I think Romeo Langford's terrific. I think Fitzner's underrated. That's a nice player to bring in transfer-wise. You like Juwan Morgan, Deron Davis. What are your thoughts on Indiana?
Yeah, I think what made Archie so good at Dayton is he recruited guys for a specific role for every team. And those guys, more importantly, those guys bought into that role. So he would have kind of his star, so to speak. And then he had, wing defenders. He had, guys that were shooters. He had someone like Scoochie Smith. He had, Jordan Seibert. He recruited that way. He's starting to do that at Indiana. And if these guys all buy into it, then they're going to be fine. And to me, it's the point guard spot. Can Devontae Green take care of the ball? Because if Devontae Green can't take care of the ball and be consistent on point guard, you have to start a freshman there in Robert Finney. How does that work out when you have a full backcourt of freshmen?
Great point. I'll tell you about a team. Let me ask your opinion on this, and I might be off my rocker because I'm not a big fan of the head coach, but I like this Minnesota roster.
I'm out on them.
Okay, interesting.
I'm out on them.
Tell me why.
What makes you want to believe in them?
I don't know. I guess I just like the roster. I hate Patino, but
right, but this has been said for the last 4 years.
Yeah, no, you're right, and that's kind of the problem. I guess I just like, I like McBrayer. I like Coffey. Jordan Murphy was terrific. I think Brock Stahl was a pretty good player at Milwaukee. Look, I'm not saying that they're going to win a ton, right, but I feel like maybe they can take a step. It was a weird season for them last year. It seemed like their season really was gone after that random game where they played 5-on-3. You remember that?
You had guys. I mean,
you
know what happened off the court. Yeah. So, but you lose Nate Mason. Nate Mason meant a lot to that team. I do like Jordan. Jordan Murphy is an all Big Ten player, but does this team stay healthy all year?
Yeah, that's the other problem. Sure.
I just don't know, man. Like,
is he gone if you don't see?
Because there's a new AD there, so the new AD will want to bring in his own guy.
Thoughts on Nebraska?
Borderline top 25 team, will be in and out all year. Miles did an excellent job of bringing in these transfers. When you look at a guy like Isaac Copeland and James Palmer, no reason for them to miss the tournament this year. They have to win games that they need to. That's what cost them last year. Is they had one quality win, that was Michigan early in the Big Ten year. You need quality wins this year, but there's no reason for this team not to. Isaiah Roby is a guy that can be NBA scouts really like him. Glenn Watson needs to be more consistent shooting the ball. That's going to be the key for them this year. If Watson can shoot the ball and be a little bit more consistent, especially with shot selection, then you're talking about Nebraska as no reason for Nebraska not to win the Big Ten.
Let me ask you, I'm not comparing these two. I'm not comparing Mullen to Miles, but it's a kind of a similar situation. The fact that you would expect Miles has to get to the tournament. He has to have significant progress. They have a new athletic director as well. Is this a make or break year? If they don't get to the tournament, he's got to be gone.
He just got the extension last year, so they might buy, it might have bought him another year.
But with all this talent, if he doesn't make the tournament, I don't know how you can justify it. But
it's Nebraska.
Yeah, true.
No, I mean that's ultimately how
they're starving for a winner there. The football program's a mess. I mean,
they are, but it's still Nebraska. Like, you're still in a tough spot when it comes to basketball there, as opposed to St. John's. I mean, I think last year helped alleviate the hot seat for Miles. Unless this year is just a complete disaster, then I think he'll be fine for another year. He might be firmly on the hot seat going into next year, but barring an ultimate disaster, I think Miles will be fine and be the coach next year.
Bettors will remember Nebraska. They were very good against the number a lot last year. I mean, one of the better teams in the country.
I don't think people know what to do with them number-wise.
Yeah. They were 22-9 against the spread last year. I mean, if you look at qualified teams, I mean, Virginia was 21-9, Villanova 28-12. Nebraska was the best team in the country against the number. They covered spreads left and right. And you were right. I don't think really anyone did know what to do with them. They're a fairly interesting team. Quickly, Reags, you got to go Michigan, right, to win this title?
Yeah, in the preseason, I'd have Michigan won.
With their continued success in the tournament, things like that, 25-1, is that a fair price, or do you think you should be a little higher?
I mean, it's probably a fair price this year. I'm not going to touch them this year. Just because it's really damn hard to go to back-to-back finals. Yeah. So that's kind of like my premise of I'll just keep trusting history and just bet against people trying to go to back-to-back finals. But 25-1 seems fair for them.
I was disappointed in the Final Four. I was there last year. It was obviously cool being from Philly, but it's hard to root for Villanova. I thought the games weren't great. I mean, they weren't good, really. I don't think any of them were good games, really. Did you go to the Final Four? What did you think of it?
Yeah, I was there last year. I mean, it was
just average.
Well, the allure of Villanova, Kansas wore off quickly when Villanova hit 42 threes. Right, so, like,
good point.
Right. So, I mean, like, that was the headliner. And then
the Loyola theatrics were a little too sickening at times, too.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what it's supposed to be. Like, that's college.
Did you meet Sister Jean? I heard you're a big fan of hers.
Nah, I'm out on Sister Jean.
I know you are. I
saw her, but I didn't.
You didn't go up and say hello?
No, I'm out.
You hate Sister Jean, huh?
I'm just out. I don't even hate her. It's just
you're just sick of it. I got it.
Yeah, like Loyola's good. Let's just talk about Loyola basketball.
And that you have them ranked 39th. Great number. Really quick before we end this, Briggs, I love St. Louis this year. Are you in on them?
Yeah, I mean, I can understand why people are high on them from like a talent standpoint. Like,
it's a lot of good players on that team.
It is, but again,
they're really good on defense.
But it's also just building now. Can these guys play together? Like, that's just kind of my question. Like, talent wise, they should finish top 2 in the A10. But at what point in the season do we finally see them gel together?
Who do you have over them? St. Joe's?
Davidson.
Really?
I think Davidson is very good.
Wow.
I mean, Kellen Grady is just that good.
Yeah.
And Bob and Kellogg.
Sure. He's a terrific coach.
I mean, more than when it comes to college basketball, you're betting on coaches half the time, right? So yeah. I'll take a guy who I think's, one of the 30 to 40 best coaches in America.
Yeah, I mean, you got Axel Goodmanson, a terrific shooter as well.
Yeah, and I know people look at the loss of Peyton Aldridge, and yeah, that was an important loss, but let's not act like they lose everybody. Like,
he continues to put really good players down there. Right?
Well, and there's still a good core coming back.
Yeah,
again, it's not like it's Kellen Grady and nobody. Like, they return a core.
I was surprised to see you at Rhode Island 59th. I thought this was a bit high for them.
They're one of those teams
But
that
they're an interesting roster. The guards are always Dalton's terrific. I love him.
and I think
That's
Russell will be better this year. It's that's where it's like they're weird. They tend weird. Like there's 5 teams that I think could win it this year, maybe 6.
Yeah, that's a interesting.
Oh,
conference.
maybe 7. Like you look at
George Mason,
Davidson, George Mason, St. Louis, Rhode Island, St. Joe's, if healthy, might be able to win it. Although I don't think so. But
are you not in on UMass? Are you in on UMass?
I was going to say UMass.
Pipkins is who's better to you, Pipkins or Pookie Powell?
Ooh,
I think they're. I mean, other than Grady, are they possibly the best players in the conference?
Oh, that's a good question. Let me think here. No, Javon Bess. I mean, Javon Bess is probably up there in conversation. I mean, obviously, we don't know what to expect yet from Carter Jordan.
Sure.
Let's see. So I would say Bess. I'm trying to think like who else. So I don't know if anybody from St. Joe's is better than either of them.
It's a shame Ryan Daly won't be eligible because they could have been interesting if he was.
Otis Livingston, he's up there.
Great guard.
VCU, no. Rhode Island, no. Duquesne,
no one on St. Bonnie.
I don't think anybody on Duquesne. Like Eric Williams is good, but I don't think he's better than those guys. Dayton, Josh Cunningham, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, St. Bonaventure, no. Like Stockard's good, but I wouldn't put him above those guys. LaSalle, obviously you have Pookie Powell. Richmond, Grant Golden, maybe.
Buckingham's gone.
Yeah, and obviously nobody from Fordham or down there. So, yeah, I think it's probably Pipkins.
Yeah. I they play Temple this year. I'm excited to see him live. He's fun to watch for sure.
Oh yeah.
All right, Reags, great stuff, man. You are listen. There's not a lot of great college basketball people, honestly, from a betting perspective, and kind of what you all do. You're terrific, great info as always. We'll continue to read your blogs, Reags. The best blogger at Barstool.
Appreciate it, man.
Barstool Reags. Hopefully, we'll talk to him again real soon. Real quick, Reags, before you go, do you have a Final Four right now?
No, I hate doing that. Like,
you hate doing that. I agree. It's
because
terrible.
Let me see the matchups.
Exactly.
I mean, so if you tell me, like, obviously that's what people want to know. Like, pick your Final Four. So what I just say, my 4, like, I would say Kentucky, Virginia, Gonzaga, and Kansas.
I always love that question. I'll take questions on Twitter about college basketball. People will contact me and say, "Give me a team that can make a run to in the tournament that's not in the Power 5."
I hate that. I hate
like,
what's his team's ceiling
yeah.
because there is none. Like they could win the title.
Right.
Like
that's what's great about college basketball. In college football, if you're UCF, you can't win the national title. Right. I know you're delusional mind you can, but you can't. College basketball, you truly can. If you're Sam Houston State, you can win the national title if you're good enough. So the ceiling is always.
I hate well, this coach isn't good. He only has 1 national championship or something like that. And it's like, well, like people say about like Calipari, like how his time at Kentucky has been a letdown because they only have 1 title. It's like he's made the Final Four 50% of the year he's there. It's like it's hard to win a national championship.
It really is. One other conference I love, Riggs, Big Sky. I'm a big Sky guy.
Big Sky's fun. Big Sky's fun.
Weber State, Idaho State, Montana.
They always have the random like NBA prospect in there too.
Yeah. Have you ever watched the tournament like on like Big Sky Network, like the conference tournament? Yeah. There's literally probably 20 people there, and all you hear is the band at like timeouts. They just zoom in on the band, and that's all you hear.
It's the best. I love mid-major tournaments.
Yeah.
It's the best.
Terrific stuff. Follow him on Twitter at Barstool Reags. You can find him on Barstool every day, Barstool Reags. Great stuff, my man. Hopefully talk to you again. Thanks for coming on.
All right, no problem. See you, man.
We'll be back next time. College basketball reports will continue. We'll get into all the mid-major conferences. We'll talk every single one, all 32 conferences. We'll keep it going. I'm the Big Man on Campus. Thanks for checking us out today. Thanks to Barstool Reags for coming on. Have a great night. Bye-bye.